Good evening and welcome to Martinis Eco Bites. That was slick. I am here today doing an interview with someone who I have been recommended to numerous times by people, not only because of his skill set on numerous levels, but also the way that he supports women in feeling very empowered. So I am joined tonight with Damien Porter from the Try Not to Unalive. Hi, Damien. How are you today?
Yeah, I'm good. I was wondering if you would change my literal business name to something that wouldn't get us banned, but I am the How Not to Die guy, and I do run the How Not to Die guy project for 2025.
It's fantastic. So, Damien, maybe you could give a bit of a background for those that don't know who you are and some of the amazing work you've been doing. I know that I was meant to be doing a self-defense course with you a while back. Unfortunately, circumstances of my life unfortunately made it impossible to come and do. So, maybe you can give an idea of how you started on this journey, and how it has been that you've, especially women that you work with, feeling safe in our environment.
Sure, thank you, and thanks for having me on as well. Look, I just finished training a woman today, a private lesson, which is very rare that I do, and this will give the readers some context because I put an Instagram post up about it afterwards. She's an 18-year police veteran, so she's been and seen more stuff than most people listening ever will ever have. And she's disabled. She's 85% blind in one eye, knee injury, multiple strokes, and I mean into the double digits, and also cardiac arrests. Now she needs self-defense. She doesn't need to go do
Mm.
sport. We couldn't get her heart rate up or anything like that. She needs self-defense. So what I love teaching, Martine, is I love teaching the people who need it, not the big strong guys that are going to go and roll around in fancy gis and jujitsu. And I love jujitsu, but
Yeah.
she needs it. I love teaching the weak, the females. That's not the same. I love teaching the people that have been bullied. I love teaching the elderly. I've taught up to 84 years old. In the weekend, I had a mum with her 16 and 14-year-old daughters. Self-defense is not a sport. Self-defense is
Mm.
those people when they need it, and they cannot rely on their strength or athletic skills or any other fancy stuff like that. So I teach them military unarmed combat for their self-defense, and I've been teaching it for 24 years, Martine.
So, how did you come into doing this? Is that your background in military defense, or was it something that you came into with your martial arts?
Oh no, martial arts. We call them the Flying Rose Brigade, and I do love jujitsu, and the skill level is beautiful. I don't have time for that. You didn't even have time to come along to one of my 1 hour courses because life gets in the way. Let's be real. If I can teach somebody something in 5 minutes flat, like I do with the models that we use for our videos, great. Um, I came into it from the military. I was in the what you call the reserve army over here, so it's a part-time military for the Defence Force.
Yeah.
I was in the New Zealand Army. And I asked one of the SAS guys, the Special Air Service guys that had come down to instruct us, what the best thing to learn was, and he put me on to unarmed combat. And then I qualified when I joined the full-time army. I qualified in the basic unarmed combat. And then when I joined the Special Forces, I was lucky enough to become a commando in New Zealand SAS. And we went through the Special Forces armed and unarmed combat course. But the answer to your question, Martine, is that first part where I started learning, I thought, I need to practice this. And what better way to practice is to teach? So I just started teaching a couple of my friends, a little 5'1" model and another rugged army sort of dude. And we got a little, air quotes class together, and we just started practicing. And I started teaching it then, and it went formal because I like doing things really well, and been teaching formally for 24 years.
Wow. Well, all I can say is that I take my hat off to you because I know that when you go into those special forces, that the discipline level that's required is something that you can't quite comprehend. So I have done some martial arts when I was younger, but it was very good for me to do focus. I've meditated since I was 3, but there is something next level when you come into special forces that you've got to push beyond certain boundaries and prepare yourself in a psychological level that goes beyond the boundaries of most humans could ever imagine. What for you would you say was in your own personal journey, some of the things that you have to navigate through or develop in yourself that you can see in others when you're either teaching or when you observe in the community going, I remember when I was at that level that I had to push through, like whether it's trusting your body to react at the same rate that you need it to as a response or something like that. What was it that you found in yourself that was your own barriers to push through or to develop beyond that?
In relation to the students I teach, or in relation to life? There's two parts to your question there, I'd suggest.
Well, when you were developing those skills yourself, when you
Mm.
went from reserves into that,
Oh,
there's certain things that, for me, mine is my upper body. That's a typical female thing, that my upper body strength is something that I really need to get back to developing again. That's just for me.
sure.
But I'm just generally a fairly strong person, but then also like psychologically, what were the things that might be a barrier for me, or what was it that you discovered about yourself in that journey? Because I think that's something that's really profound when you share that with other people, just as you've shared about that lovely lady that you've been instructing one-to-one today.
I did, and it was a real honor to teach her, and I had to really figure out what she needed at the start. Um,
Yeah.
so thank you for recognizing that. Look, I can answer that really easily, and I've answered this on a couple of other interviews. Sometimes interviewed by other special forces operators who have gone on to become TV stars and so on. On selection, and you can call it anything you like. Anybody that's listening to this may know about SEALs. They call it BUDS. Delta has selection, SAS has selection, and other special forces have different names for it. But on selection, I believe truly that unless you're that golden child, you've always got the ducks of the class that can
Yeah.
float through. But I believe
Yeah.
most people that are on selection, you must be prepared to die or get through. And I got to
Yeah.
that point at one stage where I didn't care if I lived or died. I just needed to take the next step forward, and hopefully I'm still going and still upright. So I believe you have to be able to be ready to die for passing that event. And that's backed up by Nick Caldwell here at the Mill Gym.
Mm.
Nick Caldwell is a former SASR operator, um, and he successfully runs a very strong conditioning gym for potential special force, potential police, potential military and fire. And he's famous for saying, listen, if you can crawl, you can keep going because you're just not standing. If you can,
Yeah.
if you're sitting down but you're still conscious, you can still keep going. When you're unconscious, sure, you may need
Yeah.
to take a break, but you have to be ready to die or win selection, is my personal opinion, because I got to that point. And I know that's very succinct, and listeners listening is probably incredibly brutal, but that's why when we make it through, we are the top percentage in the world and in our country. And interestingly enough, we were at an Olympic athlete level just for our physicality, because you mentioned physicality as well, but that's a
Yeah.
given. But it's all mental,
Yeah.
Martine. It's mental toughness, fortitude, and ability to display that every second of the day.
Well, I think what you've just shared there is something that I intrinsically I came into conversation with today with a very good friend, and we're talking about, you know, there's a level in your consciousness development where you've gone past your threshold,
Mm,
and you've hit your threshold, and that you're either going to fall or find a way, like you said, to put your one foot in front of the other, even if you don't know what's in front of you or how you're going to get through that next step.
yes.
That's exactly, I've had to do a little bit that myself, so I can totally relate to that. And I know a lot of other people in life have had to go through that, where they're saying that they don't really know what got them through. That is their kind of expression. They said, I just had to keep putting one foot in front of the other and push through some of the most mental, emotional, spiritual challenges, and some of them becomes physical as well. Um, I think that is where the separation of those people, um, that don't bow out, that push beyond their threshold, whether that be physically, like especially in special forces, like, because physically and mentally is where this is at, where the focus is consistently there, whereas other people in sort of everyday life, I guess you would say, to me, it's a lot of emotional and mental, not so much the physical. So for that, where do you think um, advice would be for those people that don't feel that physical to come and do a course for you? What are some of those things that you help teach them about their own body awareness, or what their limitations are, or on that kind of stuff? How do you break that down for them when they come to you, when they're working through that?
That's a great question, and probably a great concept to look at. I've started this by essentially poo-pooing any sport, any air quotes combat sport like jiu-jitsu, karate, taekwondo, boxing, wrestling, all that stuff. Don't do it. Do it for fun.
Yeah,
Do it for sport.
yeah,
But
yeah,
if you're in the toilet, pants down around your ankles or skirt or whatever the hell you do, and some guy smashes through the cubicle door, you're not going to do any of that sport. What you're going
yeah,
to do is you're going to reach down. You don't need physical limitations. You're going to reach down and you give him the good news out of the toilet. And then you're going to grab his face and bite it off. Now,
yeah,
that doesn't need. So, my 84-year-old guy with his 81-year-old wife, when I did the seniors courses, they can do that because you don't have to practice biting someone's face off, but you
yeah,
will win. You will win.
yeah,
And today was a great example. I could teach that lady that was blind in one eye, and she has essentially turned to the side. We learn that in combat when we've had a limb shot
yeah,
or damaged or broken. So anybody of any size, any age, and I say any, I'd suggest that once they get underneath 11 years old and underneath about 40 kilos, that's a completely different mindset on that for
yeah.
kids. But anybody of any size, age, fitness, flexibility, I've taught people in wheelchairs. They still need self-defense, let's be real.
Sure
And
they
I
do.
love
Yeah,
teaching how they can work around, you said limitations, how they can work around what they've got. They've still got weapons available somewhere along those lines. Um,
yeah.
so that's how I approach it. It's nothing physical. This woman
No,
today, her heart rate probably wouldn't have got above 110, 120, but she learned some skills that would protect her that she didn't learn in 18 years of policing, and will save her life because she doesn't have a gun on her or a taser or any of that fancy stuff now.
wow, that's really insightful, Damien. Your answer there, and
That's pretty brutal. I
talking
do
about
apologize, but it is
no,
real.
no, it's great because I think that there's a lot of people that never grew up with allowing that primal instinct to kick in. There's
That's
a
it.
lot of people that have suppressed it. I'm not one of
Yep.
those. I am definitely a lioness. Um, I was in situations when I was younger where I had to fight off people. I was very small and I was fast,
Now,
fast
Martine,
and
Martine,
wiry.
I'll pause that. I wouldn't believe you unless you'd contextualize that. 24 years is a long time teaching this. I wouldn't believe you, but then you said, paraphrasing, you've been exposed to it. Unless someone's been exposed to it,
Yeah.
they can talk a big game, but they will falter on the day, and rightly so because they haven't practiced
Mm,
it. You and I are on this
yeah.
live chat. We're used to it, very normal for us. But people will falter if they haven't been exposed. So I do believe that you would. And somewhere in
Mm.
that brain, you'll pick up that file that you had when you're a little kid, because you're not a little kid now, and you'll switch it on if and when you need it.
Yeah, and the thing is that I became very aware that um the fight and flight mode you need to switch off, because if you've been in a situation where your actual physical body is at risk, and that you have to actually fight your way out of a situation or get yourself away, especially when you're younger, it's like get yourself away is the fastest way to avoid that kind of stuff. I actually
Absolutely.
taught my daughter that. This is a really personal story here, but I used to teach my daughter that. I said, and we used to practice wrestling, and I would be criticized by a lot of males that said, you're acting like this male role model, like you should be more mothering and nurturing. I'm like, I'm teaching my daughter how to survive on all planes,
Yeah,
and
exactly.
to tell me that I shouldn't empower my own daughter. Well, that wrestling and making her feel like she knew her body,
Yes,
like she knew that if mum tried to come at me a certain way, that she would be able to do the same, like navigate out and get away fast, or she was a fast runner, or to fight back. Someone tried to abduct her off the side of the road,
God.
three houses from our home,
Yep.
when she was 11 turning 12. And
Yep.
I'll never forget that phone call as a mother, her hysterical, like, you know, like I've never heard anything like it. And I was trying to get to her, and I said, "Are you safe?"
Mm-hmm.
And she said, "My instinct was to run and get out the way." I went, "Good girl." And she said, "And I know how small I am, so the best thing I thought of was to hide." And I was like, "Good girl." So she hid herself in this bush where this man in a car couldn't see her. And so for me, I go back to all of that judgment where, as a lioness mother, I taught my daughter, I said, to fight me. I showed her that as a skill when she was little, because, you know, I was a single mum and her dad wasn't that kind of person. Like, bless
Yeah.
him, he's got all these wonderful points about him, but that's not something he did. And I see it now. And I just think that it's kind of one of those things that in past generations, we used to, like, rough each other up a little bit, or tackle each other and, like, get more physical without being super
Brother and
aggressive.
sister,
But
brother and brother, absolutely.
totally, totally. And that's the point. And so I could see that that is something that I felt like I really needed to do. And I still now know that my daughter's alive because I ignored everyone else telling me that I shouldn't be like that with her. And we were never physical in any other way, but we'd be like, go out and be like, right, it's tackle time. Like, and we'd be out in the lawn. And people were like, "You're nuts." I'm like, "No, I'm not. I know exactly what I'm teaching my daughter, to trust her own strength and to know how her body feels when she's in a situation where she's trying to break loose of someone's grip and stuff like that." So I will, for me as a mother, I wish more parents would listen to their instincts about trying to keep their children safe. That's the one
Yeah.
thing that concerns me, is they're not listening.
Well, there's
What?
not just you saying that. The experts in the world, top experts. I'm not an expert. I'm just a guy that knows how to teach us stuff. But I've interviewed the top experts in the world at this. They say 100% of the time, people that have been attacked, males, females, they will always say something along the lines of, "Something didn't feel right, but I didn't want to be impolite. I didn't want to seem weird. Something didn't feel right. Something felt off, but." And of course, then they've ignored that red flag and they're deeper and deeper into it, and boom, bad things happen. So, you know, you've got to be able to realize that. And people don't want to do self-defense. And if they want to do self-defense, they want to go do one of those nice sports, Martine. But, you know, come along with me for an hour and I'll teach you how to bite someone's face off and win. And you won't have to pay a membership to a fancy place and go do that. That's great, but it's not going to save you inside your toilet on the day.
Absolutely. And that's the thing, is that I've had people that have told me that have gone through your course and said that there are things that they just never had the awareness of or thought, perhaps because they've never been in that situation before,
Yeah.
or that there are things you probably push the boundary beyond what they even expected someone might try and do. And
Yeah.
they said you've put them in scenarios or situations that were just like, I would never have thought that. And it's like, well, that is a situation that's happened with women being assaulted or physically attacked or sexually assaulted in the pub, you know, in society.
Exactly.
So I can say thank you for that, because as a woman that has always tried to keep myself and other women and children safe, to have a man teaching this, to give women that sense of, it's not just empowerment. There is something. It's permission to lose their fascism. It's permission to go. Yeah, you unleash that beast when you need to.
Oh, well done. So that's interesting. I actually start the female courses with, "I give you permission to be violent." And I took that from a SEAL Team 6 operator. And because
Wow.
you girls are always so polite and your legs are crossed, and I say that in not tongue in cheek, because when you stand, the legs get crossed and you lose balance. You're so polite and you don't want to inflict any pain or damage. But in my stuff, we give you permission to unleash that. And again, I know, Martine, that you would on the day, but majority of them wouldn't. They'll talk a big game. Yeah, the guy's on top of me is trying to get his mouth in mine, and I'll just bite his tongue off. Well, no, you wouldn't, because you haven't practiced it in any way. You haven't been in any situation. But you get exposed to it with my stuff in a really safe, progressive way, and they got their permission to be able to unleash that violence, and that's what they have to do on the day. Going back to some of the mindset stuff you said, I truly think that self-defense is the ability to simply turn on that animal. You can go
Yeah.
nuts. I mean, you might lose with some skill, and you might do the wrong thing, and might be lucky and knock you out or hurt you worse. But if you can unleash that violence, unleash that ability to kill another human, God forbid, then you'll probably win, because the person that wants to go until they have finished that person off will probably win.
And that's the thing. It's like when you're talking about self-defense, there is either something primal that kicks in or it doesn't, and
You got
pushing
it.
through that blockage, that's what it is.
Yep. It is.
Totally.
And you say blockage, and I go, hasn't been exposed, whatever it is. It doesn't matter about the terminology or where it came from. You just need to be able to practice it and then be able to do it on the day.
And probably, I think you're right when you're talking about that politeness. Like there's a boundary line that we've set, and we don't want to cross that line. And you're like, no, we're crossing the line fully today.
Yep.
So for me, I think I grew up very uninhibited with, as far as like, people used to say, oh, you're kind of too honest. I'm like, is there such a thing as too honest? I don't give away what I don't need to, as far as giving away information that would put me at risk as a female or woman. But I certainly feel confident in speaking about matters that I think that are either important or I know well. But the thing is that, what would you say in society that you've observed, Damien, that has either you've seen there's a change over the time that you've been teaching this, or whether people are less confident or more confident, or what is their response when you're telling them to, it's like it's time to unleash the beast and cross that line?
Let me just write that down, because I'm going to come back to that question, but I want to touch on something else that's more important than that question. Because you were just saying you don't give away information. I'm assuming, but I'm suggesting there's probably a lot of females listening to this. What I do deal with a lot is domestic violence, maybe some stalking, other things. As a female, if you listen to this right now, and Martine, this is probably new to you, and hopefully I'm putting a file in your head and a file in the listeners' heads. How often are you at the post office and they say, oh, what's your address? Or how often are you somewhere and they say, oh, what's your phone number? And you verbalize it, you say your full name, maybe your home address, and your date of birth and your phone number. Ladies, please write that down on a placard.
Yeah.
And when that person's doing their job, the post office wants to verify your address, they say, I don't feel comfortable telling you, here you go. And you actually carry it, because you don't know what bad guys are around. This is actually self-defense. This is keeping yourself safe. Same as you don't have your home address in your GPS. You have the couple of doors down, because when they steal your car, they've got your car keys probably. And the same as I'll come up with some other ideas about that's actually self-defense. But yeah, just one thing for females with the stalking and the domestic violence there, really, really important, not to give your personal information where other people can overhear it. It's super bad. And then coming back to your question that you did ask me, what would I say
just
about?
so you know, you're right. I give over my license.
Yeah, exactly. Hand it.
I
Don't
said,
say
that's
those things.
just there, and just say, oh, that's the details there, and I just hand it over to them. They're like, oh, thanks.
Exactly. Much better way to go. And that is probably the answer to your question, is lack of situation awareness, Martine. So I started some context there. Lack of situation awareness. In the old days, you didn't let people touch you, and we let strangers. I say to grown-ups, don't talk to strangers. And they go, well, what do you mean? Don't talk to strangers. Sure, if you want to go and be friends with someone, you could talk to a stranger. I'm not meaning that, but someone comes up to you and says, what's the time? Have you got $1? Have you got a light? Don't talk to strangers. Sometimes I just say to that person, and it's the funniest thing, I say, listen, I don't speak English, and I walk away. And they've got a mystified look on their face. But don't engage, because you don't let your kid talk to a stranger. Don't talk to a stranger yourself. And I'll give an example. And I did this on Instagram the other day. This reel. There's a female, a young 19-year-old on a bus, and a man was talking to her, saying horrible, abusive things, and she hid away from him. Well, that actually spurred him on to contact her, and he actually ended up biting her nose and mouth off. He attacked her for not speaking to her. Don't talk to strangers, but sure as hell deal with them. So you may need to engage that stranger. You may need to engage them as a threat, but don't don't talk to them. You've got no obligation to talk to a stranger in any way, shape, or form. And I'm very, very strong on that.
And see, that's where those boundaries of, it's being polite.
No.
And that's where it's coming back to trusting your instincts again. For me, if
Yeah.
there's people I'm pretty good at reading a room mostly, but there are situations where I'm like, I'm not quite sure whether the energy is, like you said, there's something a bit off, and I'm like hesitant or whatever.
Yeah.
I'm unfortunately, I'm one. It's like already checked where the exit is. I know, as far as like, if I'm out drinking, I make sure that I'm out with friends all the time and we're on the same page about things. This is the plan. This is where it's going. All of that. Not that I'm a drinker these days, but all of those things. Because there was a situation where I did get my drink spiked some years ago, and I was with friends, and I wasn't even drinking alcohol, and I started feeling strange, and I said, someone spiked my drink, get me out of here now. And they had to pretty much carry me out.
Yeah.
So again, it's like what you were talking about, situational awareness. Damien, when it comes to domestic violence, have you had situations where women have been to you before things escalated, and you've had feedback from that saying, I'm just a bit concerned, or has it been mostly after there's been an incident, or that behavior's been displayed, or they've experienced it?
Majority is after, because rightly so, I shouldn't have to do it. Air quotes, I shouldn't have to do self-defense, but hey, you actually do. It's like saying I shouldn't have to learn to swim. It's like saying I shouldn't have to learn CPR. You should learn those things. But I did have one event just recently where a female had been to one workshop and no, two or three workshops, but that's incorrect. 2 workshops and 1 full course. The workshops are short, about an hour, 1 full 4-hour course. So she, in my mind, we switched on and ready to do the business if and when she needed to. Well, she had a situation where someone was trying to come into her door at 10 o'clock at night. She went immediately and armed herself with a knife from the kitchen. She quickly made sure all the doors are locked and then retreated back outside her kid's bedroom, outside, not inside, because you don't put your head under the covers. Again, natural fight and flight, but we don't do that. And she told me on the debrief later, she was ready to eliminate that person coming through the door if and when required. But before that, even if she'd done those things, I don't believe that she would have been ready to actually eliminate that person, or eliminate the threat to whatever degree was reasonable and lawful to use, because we've got to teach you how to stay out of jail. But yeah, that's the feedback. Switching that on. Unfortunately, most people come to me afterwards, and that's okay. I want to make sure it doesn't happen again.
How sad. In your experience, has there been, like, for me, I used to work in domestic violence, and I used to be there. The worst thing is that there was a number of situations where the females were the perpetrators, and we were there supporting them, and part of me was going, we can't go and help the other side of the equation, who's actually the victim. Do you have males come to you that have experienced domestic violence as well? Have ever disclosed that to you?
I don't teach many males, because mostly I think males need to sort out their ego and learn how to fight. That's not self-defense, because if they can normally get themselves out of a fight. But I taught some great males. I remember teaching one gay Buddhist male here. We did a 5-hour course, and he will eliminate someone if he needs to. And remember, Buddhism is definitely not that. So I don't teach many males, but on Instagram, because of my background with special forces and transitioning out of the military, I have had males reach out to me worldwide and talk about domestic abuse, which you can also term violence, towards them, and I've talked them through that. The reality is, the men is just going to, no, not the reality. What I've seen is, the man takes a bit of a hit, but it's not like a male hitting a female who can put their fists through the woman's face. The female's normally smaller and weaker in some way. I'm not generalizing that females are small and weak, just saying the men put up with it, and it's a mental toll on them, mental and emotional, rather than physical, where the woman's lying there with her head kicked in, or the Afghani woman when I joined the police academy that got petrol poured over in front of her kids in the kitchen and got lit on fire. very, very different. So I don't need to teach many men in person how to stop that from happening, but overriding both my answer there and then what you've talked about, as a police officer, former police officer, and going through what I teach now, the only solution to ending domestic violence is for that person, that victim, to leave. We both know that, but they need the
Yeah.
support network of people around them. They need a financial network around them, but they need to leave, because when you have been beaten up that night and then wake up with them the next morning, you're not asking for it, but you're still there. So you're still going to be that punching bag. You have to leave. And I'm lucky that as a police officer, I actually had enabled that with some victims, but there's no solution to it staying there at all.
No. And from it takes a lot of commitment for someone to have that self-realization that their behavior is either learned from, their childhood and stuff like that, to work on their aggressive behavior or their inclination to use their fists to their partner. I know of many situations where men were attacked with knives, etc., from their wives.
There we go. Tools are great equalizers, aren't they? I mean, I can give my 9-year-old boy a kitchen knife and he'll cut you in half like a lightsaber. Never trained him, but knives are the ultimate equalizer for a female. They will, that's an awesome point to bring up.
And so I've known that many times, and so they never ever retaliated, and they tried to stop them from having contact, but they ended up in hospital with and then making up excuses.
Oh gosh,
so
horrible.
I knew many of those situations, and I'm not trying to minimize either side of the equation here. All I know is that I've known many men that have been subject to this, and all I can say is that if there are anyone watching that is in that situation, one, you need to get out. Two, you need to probably go and this is the thing, it's like, where do men come and defrag or work on this? This is how I look at it also, Damien, because when you're talking about men can't let that beast off the leash to some degree, because they would probably kill their partner, because men usually have that kind of physical capacity against women, because they are much stronger usually. There's some women, I would say the opposite, that they haven't tied a little noodle, there you go. But yeah, look, not to again minimize any of this, I think it's a very, very serious issue, and I think that helping people that are both on those sides, whether you're male or female, you're dealing with slightly different, like you said, women that use tools of abuse, and often they'll be doing psychological stuff before they start using either their own fists or something else.
I can actually give you one example that really agrees with what you're saying and shows the toll of domestic abuse. You've got that four-part cycle of domestic abuse. That's a cycle, but you've got the parts of it are emotional abuse, mental abuse, physical abuse, and financial abuse. And that may be slightly different names, but that's roughly it. I know a female Great Britain Taekwondo champion. She could beat up anybody in England in the female realm, and most males that would fight with her. She was that good. Now, her husband of many years had mental abuse, emotional abuse, and financial abuse on her for many, many years. One day they're having a row in the kitchen, and they're British, so they really row. And he yanks the microwave out of the wall, throws it down, and then he does this. And if anybody can see, if we're doing video, he pulls his arm back. He cocks his right arm back to hit her. He's never hit her before. She just knocks him clean out, knocks him out cold. And do you know what, Martine? It didn't change a thing. Not one thing. And that's why I say you've got to leave, because all that insidious stuff behind, she was still minimized and still emotionalized and so on. Didn't change a thing. But when it came to physical skill, it was a no-brainer. But look, there's just no other solution than for the victim to leave.
Yeah. And you're right. It's the psychological warfare that's going on. It is, I definitely call it warfare, because there's
Mm,
a constant battle between someone trying to dominate the other, and there's no no one that you can say that's, one has to be a victim and one has to be the victor constantly in that kind of realm of domestic violence. So I just want to go and show everyone, you and I are going to be presenting. This is something that you're going to be doing, and I think you're kicking off this event, which is really exciting, Damien. It's the Self Defense and Return to Soul Conference, and it's on the
beautiful.
22nd of March. I'm really excited. Um, and that's going to be at the Balmoral Hotel. So if anyone's interested in coming, I can't stress enough that I think it's going to be very interesting, the broad spectrum of presenters. If you'd like to go and look at more, it's www.salubriousevents.net. Um, Go and have a look at that. Now, Damien, do you promote yourself through Facebook, or how do people contact you? Is that the best way? Because I do have your Facebook link.
I think I've got either Facebook or Instagram. Instagram seems to be popular for teaching. I love Instagram seems to like videos, and
Yeah,
then Facebook seems to like photos. The bottom
yeah,
line is I love teaching. I put content out on all those things free, that if one person can see one thing that helps them, great, I've done my job. You know, that event there that you've got in the background is a bunch of ladies from Ladies HQ, a big business group of females, and we had a
yeah.
great time. But either Instagram or Facebook, How Not to Die Guy or Damien Porter, you Google it, it'll come up. And look, I'm really approachable. You know, I'll get messages once a week about someone that's going through some mental health crisis, some physical crisis. I had a message from a guy about 6 months ago now. Do you remember in a service station here in Australia, there was a transgender person? I don't know if you call them male or female now. I don't know what the hell it
Yeah,
is, but a transgender
yeah.
person um, went into a service station carrying an axe, and she had a carving knife tucked in the back of her pants. Well, then at the checkout, she actually attacked the guy with an axe, split his head open, and had a crack at another female as well. Um,
Wow.
where was I going? Where was I going with that? Oh, so I did the video on that on Instagram. So thank you, Instagram, for allowing me to teach. And I said, you know, I actually don't think you could probably deal with that in self-defense, but you sure as hell could see the axe first, and you could. This guy in South
Yeah.
Africa messaged me, said, Damien, I was just buying a pair of shoes in a store, and I've gone out to put them in the box in the boot of my car. I've looked down the footpath, and there's a guy pushing a trolley with a hatchet in it. And he said, 1 minute I was about to get in my car and drive away, which that's self-defense, well done. He
Yeah.
remembered my video. He closed the boot. He went back inside the shop he just left, closed the doors, locked them, and yelled at the girls, say, hey, there's a guy out there with an axe, close up. And so he messaged me saying he thinks there's a possibility that that
Um,
saved their lives and his. And he only realized because he'd watched one video. And that's what I'm trying to do, is put a file in someone's head they can use.
wow. And to me, like, I just think like those synchronicities, or that, to me it's like a divine intervention, let's be honest, like, because the fact that someone just came across that video and we're able to share that content is so important. So that's why social media, as far as sharing all of these stories, is so important, because we realize that by opening up that dialogue, that we're learning so much more than just self-defense. It's, like you said, situational awareness. It's actually like awareness of where you are and your space. So
Exactly.
that's what, and I teach that in meditation. So what I say, you know, like when you're teaching meditation and like you're being aware of the energy around you, and then something doesn't feel right, that's your spidey sense kicking off. So I, you know, whether, whatever it is, we all have different sort of like sensories, that whether it's we feel it in here or we feel it somewhere else in our body, everyone's a little bit different, but that's the empathic side, I guess. And so
Yeah.
getting people to tune back into that is what I do, because that also keeps people really safe. I do actually coach a lot of people on that with the spiritual stuff that I do. And I said, never ever doubt your spidey senses. Your spidey sense is correct. You just haven't seen the evidence of it yet. You
Exactly. I
haven't
completely agree.
recognized the presence of whatever didn't align. Something's not, there was a guardedness, or they felt like they couldn't connect with that person, which was not normal. And I'm like, well, that's your spidey senses still pinging in the back of your head going, something's not right. Maybe we could talk a little bit about what you're presenting at this, perhaps just as an idea for those that might want to come and participate, because there's a lot of speakers. I'm talking about geopolitics, which and the change in geopolitical framework, not just in Australia but worldwide, which I think they actually all do connect with each other in the patterns of what we're all dealing with, to be perfectly honest, because I went on a rant this morning about how this nation's being run by a bunch of soy boys and F-wits, and so I'm just thinking, what have we come to where we've lost this, masculinity's been attacked and femininity's been attacked. And so I think within the boundaries of this, I think there's going to be a lot discussed. What is it that you're sort of, if you could share with people some of the things they might be able to take away, or some insight to what you might be sharing with people at this event?
Yeah, sure. Concurrently with what you were saying before and then what you learn at the event, if something doesn't feel right, it's probably not. So there's that. And nothing
Yeah.
nothing good ever happens after midnight. So those things. What the people that see me present will go away with, they'll learn how not to die. So I'll teach you how to stop yourself from being killed immediately in a life-threatening situation. You'll learn low threat environment. So the kids, that could be bullying, or it could be for an adult, it could be a belligerent person. And I'll
Yeah.
teach you how to stay out of jail when you do that as well, because it's no good.
Awesome.
There's no good defending yourself, but then you've got financial and relationship ruined because you did the wrong thing. So I'm going to teach basic self-defense in worst case scenario, in a low threat scenario, and answer any questions. We'll open the floor up at the end for a whole bunch of different questions. No different than you and I. I've given you at least 6 things that you probably didn't know before, and if one thing sticks in their brain when they leave, that's going to keep them safer, then great, you go away a bit safer. But you're not going to learn 50 martial arts moves that you can't remember. You're going to keep it pretty simple, and it's going to work.
Like you said, 50 martial art moves is not going to get you out of a deadly situation anyway, let's be honest.
Look, you put me in a UFC ring, I'm going to get absolutely creamed. I'm a special forces soldier. I need guns in a team. I'll get ruined. But if that guy attacks me in my kitchen, one of us is going to leave, and I'm going to fight to the death if I have to. And that's happened with actual UFC fighters. They're barefoot in their bathroom trying to protect their kids. Using all that's available. Sports beautiful, awesome, do that. But self-defense, I'm rabbiting on, but self-defense is not sport. It's combat, and you must win. And if I can teach the bullied, the weak, the old, the females how to win, then that's a good thing, I think.
I think, Damien, you're the way that you've I don't think you could undersell, and you're not rabbiting on at all. I totally disagree with that. No, there's been no rabbiting on. I think we've cut straight to the chase and been really to the point about the underlying issues of why it's so important to feel confident in situations where you need to protect or save your own life, because no one else is going to do it. I've been saying this for a long time. When you're in these situations where you have to, whether it's your fight and flight kicks in, and that means you're fast as a child, or someone who is petite and wiry and can get out of situations, but
Exactly.
learning those skills, I think that you can't undersell this more. So all I can say is that if there are people that would like to come, and not only just to hear the other speakers that have obviously got some amazing things to talk about, but to come and realize that this is a skillful life, literally for life, and that once you have crossed that threshold of like pushing through that boundary and
Mm,
realizing people put up blocks themselves. They're like, oh my god, I don't want to do that. It's like, why? Hit it, punch it, it's like, push through it. You've got to push through. When you help people do that, they learn so much about themselves, so
I
much.
agree. I agree 100%. I've seen it in the 24 years. They turn that switch on, and they learn to control it as well.
Look, Damien, this has been amazing chat. I'm really looking forward to presenting with you on the 22nd. Thank you for teaching so many of the lovely ladies I know how to fight for their lives. And I can't say enough that having wonderful males that are out there making females feel like they're safe or know how to keep themselves safe because you're sharing these skills. That's one of the most important things I feel in this society right now, because there are far too many scenarios that are telling us that we shouldn't be, wanting to protect ourselves, and that we shouldn't be acting like this, that it's not socially acceptable.
I don't live that way, so I literally don't comprehend what you're speaking of. However, for the listeners, and I'm not being derogatory there, it's just
No.
I don't look at it like through that lens. For listeners, as a cop, bad guys do bad things. They don't have logic. If they're on drugs, nothing's going to stop them unless you disable them. And bad guys don't have rhyme or reason. They just do bad things. So you need to learn to stop them, probably in their tracks.
Well done. Yeah. Well, on that note, Damien, that's been an amazing interview. Thank you so much for joining tonight on Edge Radio Australia.
Thank you so much for having me, Martin. It's been a pleasure. It's lovely to talk to you.
See you on the 22nd. Anyone who would like some more details, I'll put the link attached to the interview tonight. Thank you. Bye.